Today, the United Nations commemorates the International Equal Pay Day. The International Equal Pay Day is observed annually to highlight the issue to recognize women fighting a long battle for equal rights and trying to bridge the gender pay gap. Stats SA's Inequality Trends in South Africa report, which was released in November 2020, found that women earned on average 30% less than men in the same jobs. Global union trade union IndustriALL has called for equal pay for jobs of equal value as a recognized human right enshrined in the international conventions. To take this discussion further, we're now joined via Zoom by Jackie Launder, who's a Group Managing Executive at Mindcor Intersearch. A very good afternoon to you, Jackie. Thanks very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Let's start here. I mean, International Equal Pay Day, obviously an important day on the gender calendar. Let's provide for us, please, some insights about the day. But I have to say, the fact that we're sitting, in 2022 and we continue to have this false notion of equality, it seems that it is there in writing, but in reality, it's not necessarily the case. Why is that?
Well, I think, Flo, you've already highlighted progress has been slow, and although the gap is narrowing, we've seen some great progression since the gender parity was actually focused on by the United Nations. And I mean, this has been disrupted severely by COVID, which has literally put us back. Originally it was 100 years for absolute parity. Now it's 132 years before we actually reach global gender parity in terms of the World Economic Forum stats that have come out. So what this means is an entire generation of women are going to be left behind fundamentally. And South Africa as a country hasn't had much progress since the last report. So we've had very, very little progress in terms of our parity in terms of gender representation within organizations, as well as from a pay perspective, in terms of what men get paid versus women in the simplest terms.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit ironic, that we're talking about the fact that, progress is slow. I don't think we can afford to have slow progress, given the fact that as it stands, a lot of the time it's women who bear the brunt of taking care of the home, taking care of children. I think in the past it might have been justified for men to be paid more because they were providers, but that's not necessarily the case anymore. And so I want to just go back to the point that we don't really have time for what you call progress, but that is slow. And what must we then do to make that progress faster? Because we have children to raise, don't we?
Yes, we have. And I mean, I think Klaus Schwab actually said it best when he said that if women and girls, to your point, are not integrated, the beneficiaries of and shapers of the global community will lose out on the skills. And to your point, women typically have taken the brunt in terms of taking care of the home and our children having to face, obviously, the next generation and the choices they've got to make. In general, you're 100% right. We've run out of time, but it doesn't mean to say that there hasn't been progress. Women have taken on additional responsibilities. They are coming into the workforce. We have seen an increase, especially in some of the industries as far as education, healthcare, certain professions. We are seeing women also leading some organizations from a large cap perspective in terms of 7 CEOs of JSE listed organizations, but it's still not enough. We have seen in various regions as well, regardless if you're a woman with children and you are giving that care, especially over COVID where lots of schools have closed, the basic caregivers have not been available. So women have taken on additional responsibilities in terms of that as well. Women just don't have the same pay benefits or opportunities within a workforce because that is the typical role or the general role that they've taken and that they've fallen into. So I can't agree with you more that we have run out of time, and in terms of men, they've also not been given the opportunity at times. They've sort of been sidelined when they do take on additional responsibility at home in terms of their children and lending a hand at home, that they are themselves sidelined. So from a private sector and from an educational perspective, policies in terms of how we support women and men, but women specifically, obviously, because that's the topic we're speaking about, around how women are treated in the workplace who have children, the flexibility in terms of that workplace, the access they have to childcare, because we've also got a lot of women that have stepped into the role of primary earners, and they are the earners in their homes, and men have taken on the other role. So from a societal perspective, we've got to shift our paradigm in terms of those traditional stereotypes we've had, be it men versus women. These are roles we play as professionals. This doesn't dictate who we are as whether we are working. If it's equal work, it's equal pay, and at home it's exactly the same thing. And that goes down to grassroots level.
Jackie, let's talk about, the fact that, we can talk about changes needing to be made in the business world, in the workplace, but maybe it should start earlier than that in terms of how we can empower female graduates or young females that are going to be entering the workplace, how to navigate around that workplace. I mean, often it's even difficult for women to say, listen, this is the kind of pay that I need for the job that I'm in, and this is the reason why. And also, based on the fact that there's a limit in terms of job opportunities, it's always very difficult to raise the fact that actually this is what I deserve, because you could find yourself having to answer, well, we've got other people that want the same job that you've got.
No, absolutely, and I think that's critical, and it comes down and it comes back to how we're raised. It's not a case of blaming parents, but from a societal perspective, we've got to look at it from a grassroots level. I mean, everything starts at home. It's how we treat each other within our homes. It's how we have a strong mother, we have a strong father figure who gives that representation from a very young age, where women are able to believe that, well, I can do maths and I can do science, and if I want to do woodwork, I can, or IT, I can. We tend to fall into these traditional roles, even in our home. Daughters will help the moms in the kitchen, and sons will help their dads in the garage. So, and automatically that starts almost setting the DNA of how we go about our lives going forward as adults. And this carries over into school, it carries over into tertiary education, and then into the workplace, where if we don't address it at the root and create that confidence, male and female, in terms of understanding your value, understanding the value you can bring, and understanding the work that's being executed in a professional space, and that you're worth that. That comes with confidence, that comes with upbringing and believing that you are worth that at the end of the day. So it's a very complex issue. It's not an issue that can be addressed just by pay or just by making awareness around it or changing policies or regulations, or it's a combination from a societal perspective, from an organizational perspective, and from a socioeconomic perspective in terms of how we're raising our children and what we want to present to the future generation.
All right, Jackie, thanks very much for giving us your time. Jackie Launder is Group Managing Executive at Mindcor Intersearch, while we're speaking about the United Nations International Equal Pay Day, which is being commemorated today.